Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are. This is Marlena's chapter break, and today I will be talking about all of the books that I finished in the month of January. I'm super excited because this is my first monthly wrap up. I read 8 books in January, and 3 of them were 5 stars. So, great way to start off the year. I'm really excited to talk about them. So, let's get into it. So the first book that I finished in January was Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. I actually really liked this book. I gave this book 4 stars. In this book, you are following the Salt family who lives on a remote island off the coast of Antarctica, and the father, Dominic, is the caretaker for this island. The island is called Shearwater, and it's home to the world's largest seed bank, and researchers go to this island to maintain it. And one day after a storm, a woman named Rowan shows up. She washes up ashore, and the Salt family take her in. And we come to find that she is looking for her husband, who was one of these researchers that are supposed to be on the island. But she soon sees that there are no researchers left on the island. And so she's trying to figure out what happened to her husband. As the story unfolds, you find that both sides have secrets. I thought this was a beautifully written novel. I really liked the author's prose. I really liked the pacing of the story, even though there were some moments where it was a little bit slower and I found that I had to put the book down for a little bit. But once I picked it back up, it was fine. I liked the flow of it. I liked the pacing of the reveals because there are some twists in this book. Overall, I thought it was a good read. What was keeping me from giving it a full 5 stars, though, is I felt like the characters were developed pretty well, but I still found myself wanting more, and I wasn't quite sure what that was. This isn't a very long book. I think it's probably just shy of 300 pages or so. But I felt like maybe it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I don't know exactly what I was looking for, but otherwise, it's still a good book. You get a little bit of family drama in this book. You get some coming of age with the teenage daughter. You get some mystery. You get a little bit of thrills. You get some twists. Overall, though, I think it's a good book. I gave it 4 stars. And the second book I finished in January, and a much anticipated book for me, is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. I was super excited to see that Alice Feeney was releasing another novel this year because I absolutely love Alice Feeney's novels. Rock, Paper, Scissors is probably one of my favorites from her. I also love His and Hers. She just does a really good job of writing a tightly woven mystery thriller, and I don't think I've met a book of hers that I genuinely don't like. I was super excited to get this a little bit early than the release date through my Book of the Month subscription, and I completely devoured this book. Once it arrived on my doorstep, I opened the box and I started reading this book. I could not get my hands on this book fast enough. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. The twists in this are kind of mind-boggling and they throw you for a loop. You might even have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit, which you tend to kind of have to do with Alice Feeney's novels, which is completely fine. It's fiction. In the story, you are following a woman named Eden Fox who goes out for a run. When she comes back to her house, she puts her key in the door and she realizes that she can't open the door. So she starts pounding naturally. She thinks it's her house. And this woman answers, claiming to be Eden Fox. And when the man that is supposedly supposed to be her husband enters the doorway, he tells her that he has no idea who she is and that the woman who answered the door is actually Eden. I thought this book was absolutely insane, but in the best way. And like I said, you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. But there's just something about the way that it's written. You just don't want to put it down. You keep wanting more. And the twist just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. It was just twist after twist after twist. And honestly, like I had a really great time with this. And even though, yeah, there were some plot holes, there were some moments where you're like, what? Like, what is going on? One of the twists I had to go back and read like 3 times to completely understand what was going on, but I had such a good time with this book. I literally didn't even care. I still rated it 5 stars just for the experience. And next we have my second 5 star of January, and that is Party of Liars by Kelsey Cox. This is a debut from Kelsey Cox, and I freaking loved this book. This book takes place at a Sweet 16 party where things go horribly wrong. Someone ends up getting murdered at the end, and everyone is a suspect. And what I loved about this book is the unfolding of the mystery just happened so well. It didn't happen too soon, it didn't happen too late. The plot and the characters were built so nicely. And I feel like there isn't one character in this book that you're really rooting for or that you especially connect with because the plot was so good. I didn't really even care. There are some unlikable characters in there, but you get to a point where you just enjoy not liking them. Right up until the very end, I was guessing who the murder victim was. And then once I found out who it was, it did kind of make sense. But then we find out who the murder victim was, and then you're like, okay, who really killed him? Because it's not straightforward. There's twists right till the very end. And I just devoured this book. I did not want it to end. So I gave this 5 stars. This was a great experience. It was a great read and I had a lot of fun with it. And next, we have my first historical fiction book of the year and also a 5 star read, a very easy 5 star read for me, and that is The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. This book takes place in 1789 in Maine and follows a character named Martha, who is a midwife, and she's called to investigate the body of a man who was found underneath the frozen river. She soon comes to find out that the man who died was accused of SAing a woman a few months prior. And Martha thinks that this man was murdered. But a local doctor who also comes in and examines the body after her makes a determination that it was an accident, and the judge unfortunately believes the doctor. So Martha naturally wants to investigate to prove that this man was actually murdered and it wasn't an accident. I absolutely love the character development of this book. Immediately, you're rooting for Martha. Martha is a badass woman in the 1700s. She's going against social norms and she literally just doesn't care. She's doing her thing. And I absolutely loved that about her. The story unfolds from Martha's point of view through narration and then also through some journal entries. So she has a journal that she writes in every single day. And even though this is historical fiction, more on the literary side of things, there are some mysteries and twists throughout the book that I really appreciated. I thought the book was very immersive, it was very cleverly written, and I honestly can't wait to read another book from Ariel Lawhon. I thought that her writing was absolutely beautiful. It kept me gripped right from the beginning. And also, I did not want this book to end at all. I would have been completely happy with it continuing on forever and having like a million sequels. And I could not help but picture everything so perfectly in my head because of how everything was described. I was picturing it in my head so well that I was thinking to myself, this really should be a mini series or a movie. I would watch it in a heartbeat and I would recommend it to everyone, just like I want to recommend this book to everyone. If you like historical fiction that comes with a little air of mystery, I would highly recommend this book. And next, we have The Taken Ones by Jess Lurie. I downloaded this book as part of my Kindle Unlimited subscription. It's actually a trilogy, and The Taken Ones is the first book in the Steinbeck and Reed trilogy. I was really excited to read this because I absolutely love Jess Lurie's works. Litany, Unspeakable Things, Bloodline, those are my top tier Jess Lurie books. I absolutely love those, and I recommend them to everyone who loves a really dark mystery thriller type book. But for some reason, this one came up a little bit short for me. And I was a little disappointed because I was going into this just thinking I'm absolutely going to love this book. The premise is great. So basically, the book starts out where a woman is murdered. And Van Reed, who is an investigator in a special projects type section of the Minnesota Police Department. She ties this case to a cold case that happened some years prior where two girls were abducted and one came home refusing to talk about what happened. So the fact that Jess Lurie wrote this book and the premise of it is what really drew me in to make me want to read it. But as I was reading it, I realized that the pacing just didn't make sense to me. I wasn't happy with how things were unfolding and the narration style of it. I still gave it 3 stars though, because overall I think it's a good story. I think it wrapped up really well. And all is well that ends well sometimes, but I just couldn't help but want more from the author just having read the books that she had written previously. But overall, I still give the book 3 stars. I liked it. I didn't love it. It was good. It wasn't great. Definitely not my favorite from Jess Laurie, but it's not going to keep me from reading any more books from her because, like I said, the books that I have read so far outside of this one have just been completely amazing. And I highly recommend her books if you like dark mystery thrillers. Book number 6 is The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien. And I originally picked up this book because I had watched a YouTube video that recommended it. And it felt like it was something that was right down my alley. It is kind of a historical fiction novel. I think it was written in the 1960s. So is that technically historical fiction? I guess it is if you're if you're reading it in 2026, but I really liked the premise of it. So in it you're following two girls who grow up in Ireland and they are navigating their life through college and expectations and societal norms of that time in the 1950s and 60s in Ireland. It reminded me a little bit of My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferranti. It kind of follows the same like coming of age best friend trope. The difference between The Country Girls and My Brilliant Friend, though, is My Brilliant Friend is very dense. Um, I found it at times a little difficult to get through, but The Country Girls kept me entertained. Um, I fortunately read this as an audiobook, and I think that had a lot to do with why I enjoy the experience because the audiobook that I was able to get kind of played out like a live play. It kind of felt like you were in a theater and you were sitting there and watching it unfold in front of you. And there wasn't a lot of narration, it was mostly dialogue, which I thought was very interesting and it was an interesting experience for an audiobook for me. And I overall did really like it. I gave it 3 stars just because I don't know if I just love happy endings, but this book didn't end on a happy ending at all. It was actually quite bleak, but it was also very realistic. And I did like it a lot. I also liked, I was able to kind of compare the social landscape for women now versus back then in the 1950s and 60s. And while some things have changed and improved, there are some things that are still stuck in the past. And I don't know. I feel like it's kind of timeless. I feel like whether you're reading this in the 1960s or you're reading it in the 2000s, 2020s, whatever, I think you can find something relatable in it. And I think that's what I really liked about it. But all in all, I probably could have given it a 4 star, but I settled on 3 star because there was still some things, that I wanted more of, and I wanted a little bit more of a happier ending, even though I know it's not always realistic to have a happy ending, but I felt like the story could have gone there. Um, Overall, though, it was a good book and I recommend it. And book number 7 is 20 Years Later by Charlie Donnelly. I was super excited to read a book from this author. One of my really close friends recommended to me, and I've also seen his works kind of rotating around on BookTube. So I was like, I kind of want to jump on the bandwagon and see what all of the fuss was about. And I ended up liking this book. I gave it 3 stars. In the book, you are following a woman named Avery who is an investigative reporter, and she is this, I guess, famous pseudo celebrity on television. And through her investigation, she finds a mystery that was buried by the events of 9/11. And there is new DNA technology that identifies the remains of a woman named Victoria Ford and is a subject of a cold case in which she was accused of murdering a famous author who she was having an affair with. So Avery is enthralled by this story and she dives deep into it. She wants to connect Victoria Ford to this murder, and come to find out it is not as cut and dry as she thought it was. I really thought that I was going to love this book initially. I thought the premise was really cool. I thought it was a little bit unique as well, and then tying in the the 9/11 piece to it. But overall, though, I kind of wanted more from the characters. I thought that there was more room for some character development. I wasn't actually rooting for anyone, and that's the thing. I wasn't rooting for Avery, who was supposedly the protagonist. I wasn't rooting for Victoria. One of the twists, or I don't know if it was the twist, I kind of saw coming from a mile away. It wasn't surprising at all when it was revealed. Another twist though did get me, but also it was just okay. Like, I didn't have that wow factor that I'm looking for in a mystery thriller book, and it was good. It wasn't like the worst book that I've ever read by any means, but I was expecting more. It had come as a recommendation to me, um, and I really, really wanted to like it. I don't know, is this just not Charlie Donnelly's best book? Are there any other Charlie Donnelly books out there that you can recommend to me that you think were better than 20 years later? Because I do want to read more from this author. I do see it all the time that people are recommending him. I was just looking for a little bit more from this book. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it was good. It was just your average mystery thriller. In my opinion, there wasn't anything crazy, outstanding, special about it, but I still had a good time. I read it pretty quickly. It's a good page turner. It's a good way to pass the time. Like, I didn't regret it at all. It was just 3 star for me. That's all. And last but certainly not least, we have my eighth and final book that I finished in January, and it is James by Percival Everett. This book is a retelling of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and it's told from Jim's perspective. The book also won a Pulitzer Prize, and I completely understand why it won a Pulitzer Prize. It was very beautifully written. For myself, though, I gave it 4 stars just because the beginning of the book, the pacing was a little bit off for me. I don't know if I was just waiting for something to happen right out the gate, but I was kind of losing patience with it a little bit. Once it got to the point though where it picked up, I was pretty satisfied with it. I do love hearing things from Jim's point of view. And overall, I thought it was a really good book. I did not read the original book by Mark Twain, but I am familiar with the story of Huckleberry Finn just through pop culture and things like that. But I do love what the author did with Huckleberry's story arc in this book. It was refreshing, it was different, and I just really liked hearing things from the point of view of a black man in the South in the 1800s. And I feel like it opened my eyes a little bit as well, which I really appreciate. And I do really love reading books from other people's perspectives, and this was no exception. But overall, I thought this was a really, really good book. It's not on my list of favorites, but I do definitely recommend it. Like I said, I just wish that the pacing was a little bit different in the beginning. And I think that is what kept me from giving it the full 5 stars, because it wasn't the ending. The ending in the book was actually really great. And Jim modeled survival and resilience. And I just really liked what the author did with the character. It was just a little thing that kept me from giving it 5 stars, but I completely understand why this is among people's favorite books, and I completely understand why people give this 5 stars, and I understand why it won the Pulitzer Prize. It is very beautifully written. It is very timely. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time reading this book. I was able to read it both through audio and through ebook. And I was able to get both copies on Libby, which I was super excited about. So that is all I have for today. The 8 books that I read in January, I was very happy with the books that I read. I had 3 5 stars. I had a couple, maybe 1 4 star. I think it was 1 4 star, and then the rest were 3 stars, which seems about right. And I'm really looking forward to February reads. I'm really looking forward to doing more of these videos. And I invite you to put in the comments what your top read was for January. I would really love to see what you are reading right now, and any recommendations that you can give me, I truly appreciate. So as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.